Thank you so much for joining us, Carla.
Thank you.
Let's start by hearing a little bit about you. So the theme for today is Made It in Nigeria. What does it mean to you to make it?
Well, first of all, thank you for the very kind introduction. Greatly appreciate it. So I think, so for us, I think made it in the Nigerian context, I think has to be very different from other parts of the world. Because fundamentally, I think as a nation, if you are not by your own success, having a significant ripple effect on a broader portion of society, then I think you need to rethink things a little bit.
So how are you measuring success? What does success mean to you?
Well, it's very simple. I think for us, we measure success two key ways. One is how much more money we are making our customers. So our customers are smallholder farmers, and we measure with great accuracy their amount of net income growth that they're able to get. And so that's is the leading indicator, but then I think the lagging indicator is now, are we actually truly bettering their lives? And so we measure that in many different ways. We run biannual NPS surveys where we're very proud of the fact that we have our NPS is 160% higher than the benchmark on the continent. So we're keeping our customers very happy.
Brilliant. And I mentioned in my intro, you have degrees from MIT and Harvard, so you could have done pretty much anything, anywhere. What made you decide to come back to Nigeria and do a hard thing in a hard place?
Well, my original decision to move back to Nigeria was actually driven by very personal reasons. My mother's health was not the best. And so all my siblings and I were outside the country, and my parents had reached that phase where it was very clear they needed family closer by. So that was my primary motivation. And then, upon returning to Nigeria, I think eventually found my way into what we're doing today.
Would you do it again if it
100%.
wasn't by force?
Hands down, the best decision I ever made.
Awesome. Okay. So I mentioned that Babangona is this rare fusion of profit and impact. How do you balance that? There must be some trade-offs. So for all of the founders here that find it challenging to challenge the two, what advice would you give them?
So I think the biggest trade-off is, fundamentally, if you are trying to do a business that is higher impact, you are generally going to trade off one of two things. One, the margins are going to be much tighter, or the effort that you have to make for those margins are going to be significantly higher. So your return on effort, let's put it that way, right, is going to be significantly higher. So I think fundamentally you have to be willing to make that sacrifice. I remember one of the first people I talked to about Babangona back in the early days was the head of agriculture for one of the biggest banks in Africa. And when I shared with him what we were going to do at Babangona, he looked at me very puzzled and said, "Are there not easier ways to make money?"
On that money topic, so the founders have benefited from great mentorship and expertise and are here trying to get access to this $3 million of funding. And we know that access to capital continues to remain one of the biggest challenges that founders have. So what advice would you give to founders to make sure that they are investable and debt ready?
So I think for us, we've been very fortunate that we've been able to raise quite a bit of capital from some of the world's largest and most prominent investors. And, I think our approach was it's very simple, but it requires a significant amount of patience, because fundamentally what you have to do is you have to understand where you're going to be in 5 to, say, 7 years, and think about what type of capital would you need at that stage. And you don't go and start developing those relationships in 4 or 5 years, you start developing them now. So we started developing all those conversations very, very early. When we were, I think our first year, we were doing 20 million naira in revenue, and we were in discussing with the largest bank in the world, right? And they finally invested 7 years later, but we started those conversations very early, and we were very, it's very important that you